today what we're going to goal is to focus on global forms and external rules. So iLogic has been around for quite a long time, and it's been around for a long time, and I think a lot of people spend their time in these first two tabs with rules and forms. And what I wanted to share today was how you can use global forms and external rules to really kind of set up a custom environment. So it's a way of using these tools in order to set up rules or just automated quick little routines without going through the heavy weight of maybe developing a full-fledged add-in that builds into Inventor, right? You just need to set up your environment and change things. So what this is going to go through, like I said, is these two tabs on the right of the iLogic browser is global forms and external rules. So the core thing is if I build things into rules or forms, those are stored in the file. And that's fine, it means it's portable. But that means that if the rules ever change for this, say, your drawing templates or the forms that you want to build here, they are stuck in that file, right? And then you could have thousands and thousands of files across your company, all with that code baked into them, and no real easy way to rip it out, change it, fix it, correct it. It's not a simple thing to do. So they certainly have their rules, their place for writing rules into maybe specific parts and templates. But what I want to talk about today is how we can build global forms. So these global forms are stored external, not inside of any file, which means that anytime you're accessing the same project file, you can have access to these global forms, regardless of which template I run. So if I make a brand new drawing template, you can see I have those same interface right here, regardless of what's here, regardless of what file is open, they're all there. The same thing with the external rules. They are external to the files, unlike the typical common way that people work with their iLogic. So first I want to demonstrate what did I build here, right? So I'm going to show you how I built it, but let's go see what I did. So I built a global form, and it's pretty easy to do. You right click, you can add forms, you can edit the layout, but here I've got tabs here broken out so that I have quick little routines, couple dozen lines, really, not very complicated, but this is just a prompt that gives me various sets of sheet sizes and then changes them. So right now, you can see down in the lower right corner, I'm a B size sheet. So I can go down to an A size, nothing special there. I can launch it again. Let's go to C size. Again, nothing super special, but there's other little things in here. Notice that it says change sheet size and border. If I go up to a D size, then I'm pretty big, and I have it automatically changing my border for me. I could have it change out the title block too, but I also have a separate tool for that to switch between these two. So if I were to go to the really small size down to A, that title block is pretty big. It's taken up most of the space on this sheet. So I can, whenever I want, pick another tool, just a few lines of code, not very complicated, called the small. And basically it's switching out that title block for me and just providing more space in that area. So you can come up with whatever environment you'd want. This is just kind of something that I did for one of my clients several years ago, and then I've ported it back over here for demonstration purposes. The other thing I've built here is an edit title block value. So
Hey, Josh, I don't hear your sound. I didn't think so. Can you guys hear me though? Okay. Hey, Josh. 1 second, guys. Josh? Yeah, just to let you guys know, I have sent him a message. 1 second. You know what I'll do? I'm going to try to take presenters' rights back. Just a sec. Josh, if you can hear me, Josh, check, check, check. Josh? Poor guy. Hang on, guys. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Just 1 second. I'm just trying to get to Josh. Just 1 sec. Check, check. Hey, Josh, can you hear me? Okay, guys, I'm going to try to call his cell phone. Just 1 sec. You guys can hear me go through this whole thing.
Sorry, I'm unavailable at the moment. I'll return your
Okay, so he can see my message. So just 1 sec, guys.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, there I can hear you. Okay, just 1 second. Let me bring back, I'm going to make you the presenter now.
Yeah.
Okay, just give me 1 second.
Sure.
All right, we didn't lose anybody. Thank you so much, guys. This is our 2021 first webcast, and I'm not exactly sure why Josh is coming in and out, but we've got him back now. And you know what? So Josh, if you go back,
Sure.
it's not this slide. It was when you started to type in
Type in.
Yeah, like you started to this slide here, we lost you. So if you just keep your message
Sure.
up, I know Teams is hard to keep an eye on, but all right,
Sure.
Here we go, guys. I apologize.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Being patient. We'll get through this. So taking a look again, here we were on, as I was talking about back then at this point, I have a specific rule right here that is actually saying, hey, what is my title block on my screen? And then what is, based on that title block, will launch of a specific form for that title block. So you can see here I have this form for the Imagine It Small title block. If we switch back to the full-size Imagine It title block, and I click the same button, it's just launching a different form in the code. Pretty simple, really, to find the name of that and then launch a form accordingly. But what I was going to jump into is not just for drawings, right? We can do this for anything. So if you have the same standard properties on your 3D models, right? Like I have this just model of a desk. So I could create a standard form. There's no code here. It's just a simple form in iLogic, but it's not stored in the file. So it's stored externally, and I'll show you where. So now I can update my part number to whatever it needs to be. Type a little bit better. And then fill out those properties, and then I can do that for any file, right? I can start a brand new part file, and then that same 3D model properties would be available for anything, and I can customize that and change it, and it's always up to date for everyone in the company using that same automation customization. So I've gone through and shown you what I built. The one other thing I wanted to do was setting departments. So this is something that I did for my previous client. Actually, I worked for this company, and they needed each department to have different settings in Inventor. They wanted this department in engineering to have one thing, fabrication to have another, or manufacturing. So this is a rule that gets run and prompts me for what division or department am I in, and then it will go through and set settings. So what are those going to be? Well, one example is, close this. I'm going to go into those application settings under the File Options menu. And then I'm going to go into the Display menu. So just one thing as an example, we have this display quality rough, right? And there's various other settings that we can resort to or change. Almost anything in here can be changed through code. So actually, I'm going to put that down as medium for now, just to prove that something's going to change automatically. And if I pick a department, and I pick engineering, I'll click OK. It verifies that I have the right project file active if that needs to change. It lets me know, hey, express mode's on, and for our work, we don't want that on, for example, right, for whatever reasons. So here, I can't change express mode while files are open. So I just created a document that launches and tells people how to do that after it has been closed. And it's letting me know that the option has been set for the Department of Engineering, right? So if I go back in to our options, you can see the display quality got set to smooth. There's also other things that if we didn't highlight them, they would, you might notice that they changed. For example, the annotation scale got bumped from 1 to 1.5, or any other settings that you want to change or not change. You don't have to change at all. I also have a routine here, right? So let's say that my name is Bob, right? And I do that same thing, hey, engineering. It will make sure that my username is always uppercase, right? Because that's how we want that filled out. So it's just going to take whatever my username is and force it back to uppercase whenever you set those settings. So we can manage the application options or various other settings in Inventor through buttons that are available to everyone in case things get messed up or switched around. So you can see down here that my annotations got bumped back up to 1.5 because that's best practice for this department. So like I said, that's what I've built. Now, how did it happen? How did I get there? So the first few things, we're going to get into some technical stuff. I'm going to keep the code pretty simple and light. I'll do some copying and pasting, but what we're going to do is I'm going to show you where are these files, right? So if I take a look at the files that I have, you have a really easy shortcut to get to these. If you're on the global forms, you can right click in a blank space and say open containing folder. And what you'll notice if we pull this over is I put my automation under the C drive, imagine it. But basically what it defaults to is wherever your design data is mapped to in your environment, and there is an iLogic subfolder, and under that is a UI. And what you'll see here, if I filter out to the XML files that we actually care about, is there's this iLogic browser UI form specification. Very technical, but that's what it is. That controls and gets saved and edited and changed every time I edit this tab. That's what that is. It's just a reference to, hey, this tab, do all these things. So let's say that I wanted to change this, right? If you right click in a blank space of the global forms, you can edit these and it treats the tab like its own form. Here I can pull in external rules, right? So you can see I've mapped certain rules into as buttons on that DWG tab. And then there's a form that gets created here for 3D model properties. If I want, I could add in or change any number of other things. So for example, I could add in a new form here, right? Now I can't do much about this form, but let's just say that this is going to be maybe I need less properties. This 3D model properties has a lot in it. Now you can't do a lot with that here, as I said, but once I've added that in, you'll see that it appears over here. And now I can right click on the button, edit it, and start pulling in common eye properties or other rules to run off of that. So let's say I just want part number, description, and the engineer. And then that's it. And I'll come in here and say, oh, I'm a big fan of the none. I don't need a button there. I got a X up there. And then any one of these I can say, that's good. And now I've got a super simple basic form just filling out all the active eye properties of this particular file. And that's it. I'm done. I've created that. And now if we go back to that folder, you can see now I have a properties basic XML. And that XML defines that form, just like I have an XML for the Imagine It Small and the Imagine It title blocks, right? And then there's my 3D properties, right? We're going to get into this a little bit more, but the state XMLs can be pretty much ignored, and I'll talk about that later. Now, again, all these are very similar to the rules and forms here that you normally use to, except that we're storing these externally in this XML in the in that folder, right? So if I right click again, open containing folder, again, I'm design data, iLogic, UI. So if you make a single form in here, you'll start getting XMLs into that folder. Next thing, what about the rules? So rules, you have a lot more control over. You can decide where those external rules are. So you can, on the fly, add or create external rules here and say where they are and navigate to them. But it's a much better practice to just define a specific folder. So under the Tools menu, under Options, is this little hidden iLogic configuration. And in here, I've specified that this path is where I'm going to store all my external rules in the support folder, right? So if I'm going to pull up in my workspace here, you can see those two project files. I have this support folder where I keep various files, code. So these are all my existing code that you can see matched right over here. So whatever is in that folder will be accessible as an external rule and can be easily edited. So once I've added this in, you'll see it pop up under my external rules. And when editing your forms, whether you're editing, let's say, excuse me, when you're editing the forms or the global forms tab, you have access to those rules very quickly. And you can see that if I take a look at this one that changes my sheet size and border, it's saying, hey, go into my code subfolder and then find that rule named as such. So if I take a look at that again in code, again, it's saying, well, support is already the folder that's mapped, and then I just need the next subfolder. Next, when we have that code in there, that means that wherever I move my customization, my automation, it moves with the project file. Because that project file is always saying, hey, my design data is in this folder, and I've got a support subfolder. If I close this down and show you the project file, that project file that's active also has a support folder. So that support folder is saying that, okay, well, from my location, I have a support folder, and anything there should be in a library. And this has traditionally been used as a place to store your part files or your assembly files that don't change, just static sized parts that just get thrown into your assembly and almost never get changed, never get reused or copied or adjusted. But the library is a really great place to store your automation, your code. So let's go take a look at what I've written in that code, and then we can see how that's built. So once I have a button, let me close that out, didn't need to change that. Once I have a button here, so if I take a right click on here and say edit, that is because it's a form. But here you can see I can have a button, and that's because this is actually code, right? It's not a button on the global forms, it's code, and then the code will do things. So, so in here, within a few lines of code, I've got a utility that will let me change my sheet size to whatever standard my company wants to enforce. Here I'm using almost all of the available standard sheet sizes. But I'm just going to walk through the code here, and then we can certainly, as I said, there will be time for questions and answers at the end. So first, we're just saying, hey, from this application, get me the active document that's currently open, right? Then from that active document, I need the active sheet and its title block. So that gives me my title block, and then also the border, okay? I also want to know what the active sheet size is, right? So there's shortcut iLogic code for that. And then I need an array of text. So these are all my available sheet sizes, which are going to match what you could pick from the Inventor interface. And then we'll start using the input list box. And all of these are pretty much accessible from your snippets, right? If I take a look at the forms, no, not forms. There's an input box, which is just exactly what I'm using. Well, that's an input list box, but this is going to prompt me for my size array, and then the sheet size is what's currently active, and the rest is just text to display in the form, not a big deal. We want to then catch for, hey, what if I canceled? So when I cancel my input list box, if that's nothing, no string, then let's exit, and I don't want to do anything else. And then down here, it's just, hey, I've got all my stuff. I've determined what I want to do. Now we'll do a sheet saying active sheet, change size, and then pass in that size and move the border true. And then down here, here's where per sheet size, I've defined that I'm going to use a different border, right? So this is where you get that extra benefit of enforcing certain rules in your designs that you don't have to force people to make those decisions every single time they're making changes, right? At this sizes, we use this border. At this sizes, we use that border, or whatever your given rules are. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete out all of that. And I'm just going to go through how this would work typing this out if we were to do it from scratch. Okay. So if we were to start this from scratch, there's many ways to access this, but typically we can have access to all these snippets. So if a document we have, excuse me, I'm going to start with this doc.save, but we have this document, and sorry, there you go, document. If I have my IntelliSense up, the newer versions of Inventor, you hit the period and it'll let you know what objects are available. This document, and then that's going to be my ODoc, right? Next, I need to take, and I need the title block. So I need that ODoc coming up there, dot, active sheet. Oops. Dot title block. Unfortunately, the IntelliSense isn't really perfect. It's not going to come up with everything all the time, but a quick way to verify whether you've done this or not is if you hit save or even run. Oh, well, that's why it's not happening. I'm in a part file, so let's go back to the drawing. And I'm sure that now we'll have no problems. Same thing, so I need the, my border is going to be my ODoc dot active sheet dot border. So now that I have this, I also want to know, based off of that active sheet, right? I want to know what's the current size. So I'll say that is going to be my, you can shorthand some things with iLogic. size. So I write iLogic rules in a manner of like, I want to get all the information, right? So if we think about it this way, right? And then once I have information, then I need to start prompting myself for information. Now my next one, I'm going to type out and copy and paste because you guys don't want to watch me type all day. But let's say we went for just the A through F sizes, just to something different. And so this means that when controlled by these little squirrely brackets, it means it's an array of text. And next, as I said, you've got these message boxes. You want an input list box. And the prompt is going to be my select size. And next is, instead of this multi-value list, I'm going to say use my size array. This is the list of things that you can pick from. It's what the list will be. Next, it's going to be what's the default. And if we hover over that list box, you can see the order of those objects and what you can place into those. So here, I'm going to say that my current size and the title is just going to be a title is sheet size, and then size is, the input list box has a few different places to place text, prompt, a title, and a list name, right? So once we do that, we'll call this the chosen size. I'm just gonna come through and I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna do a message box on the chosen size, just to prove out that what I did works. So if I run this, you can see I have all the available sizes I thought I was gonna get, my prompt, my title, my list name, and then that's just a message box reporting back that I selected D. Likewise, if I run this again, if I cancel out, it's going to return a blank string, blank text. So it's just something to be aware of, and why we're going to do our next thing, which is if the chosen size is equal to nothing, then we would say exit sub, meaning this routine, this subroutine, this whole rule that we're writing. So what's going to happen is if I do cancel out, the message box won't appear because it'll just stop before it gets to the message box. So I'll pick C. C came up because I picked something. If I just cancel, nothing's going to happen. And it's important to do these kind of things just because you know people are going to click on the X and because they don't want to make a change. Now we get to the fun part where we actually get to do things, the things that we want to do, make changes. So if we do active, type better, active sheet dot change size, right? So that's an iLogic function, change size. And then what we're going to do is put in that string. So that's chosen size. And then there's an optional Boolean here for moving the items. So I can say true, yes, move the border around to match the new sheet size. Okay. So now with this alone, we can also test this and make sure that it runs as expected. So that's A size currently. You can see it in the title block and it was defaulted. So let's go to C. It changed it and it hit that message box. So I know that I'm already working the way that I want. Then this is where we can do more creative things. I'm going to get rid of that message box because we're pretty sure we know it works. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a select case. So that's over here. So we're going to say a select case, and then we have to get that chosen size. So based on that, I want a case, meaning what if it is, and I'll just copy them up here, the small stuff, ABCD or ABC. So I can put those in a comma list, and then I can say that I want to call out, let's say, a different border, right? Or so we would say active sheet dot border is equal to the 0.5 inch. Can't spell today. Got to make sure you wrap any text in those double quotes. Then we can take that same thing, and instead of calling out all the other sizes, we're saying like, well, if it's not ABC, let's do case else, and we'll just use the default border, right? And then we have to, like an if then else statement, we have to say that we want to end select. So that actually finishes this logical statement. So I've now built essentially the same thing with less selections here. A is the 0.5, the 0.5 inch border. And if we go up to C, it's still a 0.5 inch border. And now if we go up to D, it's switching over to that default border built into the template for doing zones. Now, I think I'm running a little short on time as far as all the topics I wanted to cover, because I do want to get to some Q&A, but I also wanted to get into some small other things that are pretty useful for reusing things. So, for example, if I have my change title block tool, you can see I have my title block selector. Nothing's changed there, but actually more importantly, the setting of the department. So if I say engineering, you can see that the title up here is Imagine It Tech. So it says it's active. Express mode is a thing that we fortunately didn't have time to get to today. But one of the things that I created and referenced in, if we take a look at the set department. So I edit this rule. This goes through and sets all the settings. You know, we don't have time to go through all of them, but you have access to all of these. But there are these things that you can add in as kind of an advanced function. So, excuse me. Under this Run Other section, you have things called Add VB Rule or Add Reference or Add VB File. So what this does, it says that when I run this rule, I also want access to this file, this common. And what that does is that it gives you access to maybe have it to standardize something or reuse things. So in here, I've got company name, just as an example. And this was actually defined nowhere else in here, but it's in the common VB. So let's take a look at what that looks like. If I go to external rules and open up my common, it's not really a rule, but it is in VB you can make what's called a module, and it's just something that is just there and accessible. So now I could do something like, instead of abbreviating it, imagine it technologies. So now that value is changed everywhere that's referenced, and I don't have to keep typing that everywhere else or any other thing, or if I wanted to change the name of the department from manufacturing to MAN, right? I could abbreviate that. Right? I could abbreviate those two as well, and because they get used everywhere, it's complaining that there isn't a sub-main in here, but there. That's fine. We don't need this to run. We're just using this to edit. So now when I go back to my department, right, every time, if I run this again, you can see now that I've renamed that everywhere that value's been used in my code over and over again in every rule, and my departments have changed, but it hasn't actually, it's just a display. It's still going to do the same things, right? So I think I had a few more things that I wanted to get into, so I'm sorry if we didn't have the time for that, but I definitely wanted to open this up for questions in the chat, and then we can proceed from there.